And we are live. Wow. I was just working on technical stuff, multitasking. Good morning. Welcome to this week's episode of Sexually Speaking. I am one of your hosts, Keisha Clark, and I'm here with my beautiful sister goddess co-host, Rhonda Burns. Good morning, Rhonda.
Good morning, goddess. Good morning, everybody. My body wanted to sit here, but it's like not the most ease. So I'm like, okay, body, what do you know that I'm not willing to know? So good morning.
Bodies do very interesting things, don't they?
They do, and they're so smart. I just keep getting more and more how amazingly smart they are. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Another story, another time.
That could be a topic: intelligence of bodies, smartness of bodies. Wow. No IQ required. I wonder. Exactly. Wow. So, golly, this week, thank you if it's your first time joining us, and if you're seeing this on a replay, thank you. If it's also your first time joining us as a replay, however you're finding us, welcome, and thank you for joining the conversations. We get together once a week on Tuesdays for the live show, and we have unconventional conversations to unfuck your life, and we are celebrating all things sex and the sex of everything. And Sexually Speaking is just this sort of fun collaboration that we're playing with, and Rhonda and I both have been desiring to bring more of our capacities with bodies and celebrate our love of all things bodies and sex and magic and even woo-woo.
Especially woo-woo.
Especially woo-woo, right? The woo-woo makes it interesting. So we come together once a week for these conversations. You are always invited, and thank you for being on the list. If you are not already on the guest list, you're seeing this somehow on the YouTube channel, and you haven't gotten yourself on the guest list, look in the information below this video, and you will find a link so that you can get on the guest list. You only have to do it once, and you can get weekly emails to join us live. You can submit questions. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with us on the show as well as in other ways. So, gosh, both of us have a background in body work and in facilitation. We both do really fantastic stuff. And to read more about that, you can actually go to the information on this YouTube channel, or you can take a look at one of those emails when you get your name on the guest list. If you are on the guest list, thank you for playing with us. And so I normally, do you want to tell folks anything about you, Rhonda, before we dive into this?
One thing. And I'm now owning it, and it feels really good. And the new hashtag is spiritual maverick. Yeah, it feels good.
That's awesome.
Sum it up. Yep.
Awesome. That is freaking awesome.
Feels good.
Props to you, my sister. That's awesome. Spiritual maverick. Wow, I love. That's juicy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you? One thing.
Oh my gosh.
That's like asking Willy Wonka to show you one piece of his chocolate factory.
Right. What I'm playing with right now is Goddess of Magical Possibilities. So it kind of encompasses all of what I do, and that's what I'm playing with. So how you like that? Spiritual maverick and Goddess of Magical Possibilities? I think that works for a sexually speaking conversation.
I think so. It's a different sandbox indeed.
There you go. I'm happy. Works for me, yeah. So today's topic is actually something, it's a little bit of we segued into this from last week's conversation. So if you didn't get to see that one, we were talking about You Are So Beautiful. I was thinking if you didn't get to see it yet, you'll want to go watch it. We went into some places that were just really, there's so much to be said about beauty. There's a lot of conversations about beauty, and we only just barely began to skim the surface, I think, of this mountainous, epic topic of beauty. And after we had the conversation, something that was kind of bubbling was around I wonder how many of us find our private parts, our sexy bits, beautiful. And so we started to kind of let that energy percolate, and that's what wanted to be talked about this week. So it's not necessarily a continuation, but we're segueing now to all your sexy bits. So that's what we're going to play with this week. And everything that
go.
Go ahead.
And everywhere you are buying what everybody else is selling and calling them naughty bits, I know it's meant to be funny, and I know it's meant to be, but there's something that the bodies are like, we're not naughty. Like these, like I've had so many people call them naughty bits, and I'm like, what? No, they're not naughty. But then that's a whole nother topic. So everything that is,
well, and that is part of this. Yeah. And naughty could be fun. You can have fun kind of naughty and play with that. And I get that a lot of people, when they're saying the word naughty, they're not saying it from a fun place. So, So what would it take to have more of that? And that is really where we kind of wanted to play with was, do you like your sexy bits? Do you find them appealing or pretty, or even do you find them sexy? And are you supposed to find them sexy? Are they supposed to be sexy? Like, do they have to have a particular anything? Do they have a job? Do they have to have a job, kind of a thing? So when it also comes to like sharing those parts of us with our lovers, what comes up for people? There's quite a bit of energy around that.
Comparison kills. Oh
so, God. Yeah. Would you like to actually like your sexy bits? And what if we could celebrate those today, along with all of us, all of our bodies? But really, what happens when we put a little bit of attention on our sexy bits? What starts to happen for our bodies? What starts to happen, in our world? What does that create for us? So how did you learn about your private parts, Miss Rhonda? How was that presented to you initially?
Oh, man. Well, in 6th grade, we had the talk, right, in school about puberty and girls getting menstrual periods and boys going through puberty and starting to, erections. And so just the really just basic stuff. And then I remember coming home, and so that was 6th grade. Right now, I've had these body parts. I started developing very early, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about bodies. There was modesty throughout the house. There was judgment on bodies. We didn't talk about this stuff. And so I remember after that talk, I came home and my mom had this ugly green box that I guess she bought from the school. And it had womanly items in it, right? So Kotex pads and a pamphlet and it was basically, here you go for when, and it's like, okay, Mom, right? Like she didn't know what to do with it. She didn't know how to address it. There was so much stuff around just all of it. And it's like, oh my God. So I actually learned about sex and life on the playground at school and behind the school making out with boys. Like I didn't have an education, so to speak, in terms of my body and what it all means. And right. So, oh yeah, somebody else had the same experience. Yep. Yeah. I didn't have an older brother or sister. We didn't have the internet back then, right?
Right.
We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Google. So we freaking lived and learned it on the playground, right? And we trialed and errored it. So that was basically the initial experience for me. And then it's just been a lot of trial and error and work and hardship and upset since then. And then in the last few years, it's been a very different space. How about you? Like what's
Well, I remember as a little bitty kid, I I remember this one scene that kind of flashes. I was majorly intrigued by bodies. Okay. And, I was one of the kids that wanted to put my hands on my aunt's. She was a very Gaia earthy goddessy figure, and a little bitty kind of woman, in stature, but not in spirit. I was so fascinated with her, and I loved her roundness. And so when I was little bitty, I just remember like wanting to put my hands on her breasts. Because they were so soft, and and I just loved like reaching out and kind of like patting her breasts. And then when I was with her, there was a little bit more of an ease. She didn't really have a reaction about body stuff. Now, she didn't necessarily have conversation with me about body stuff because I was a little bitty. But then in contrast, I remember I have a sort of a picture memory that comes up sometimes. I'm in the bath and my grandmother is bathing me, and she's kind of in a hurry. And you know, when we bathe our children, we're bathing all of them, and we delicately, gently bathe their privates, you know, because it's part of hygiene and all. And so she's bathing me, and I just remember this awkwardness. I was looking at my body and being very curious. You know, I think I was all of 3 years old, and there wasn't really anything said, but I just remember this sort of like doing everything she could to avoid, because, you know, I think there was this, what I can say now is I'm aware that there was this kind of like, it's inappropriate to do that, and yet it was like something necessary. So I remember this weirdness around the, you know, the bathing of my private parts, you know.
Right.
And then there was a great deal of shame, energy, and avoidance, and quite a bit of denial in my nuclear family. You know, it was just not, bodies were not something that were celebrated. So when it came to private parts, yes, I had that. I think it was like a 1 hour talk in our public education in the entirety of the school year, right? Yeah. I think it was in the 6th grade for me too. And the thing was, though, that before that, I had been so curious. So thank goodness we at least had it was a family medical encyclopedia, and that was my resource. Thankfully, I had that one resource to go to, because I could go look up things. So I had already seen images of bodies. I had seen, you know, images of babies in utero and all kinds of stuff in the version of the family medical encyclopedia that was then. And so it wasn't near as fancy or graphic as you see nowadays, but I did have a resource, and that is really what saved me. It didn't really allow a way for me to process the feelings, the emotional stuff that comes up with all of that, but it gave me a sense of, I know what that's called, I know what that's for, I know, you know, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, it was weird to have the resource of the book, but I didn't really have any other people that were talking about it, and I didn't really have a lot of conversation about it, you know, in school. Right. So it's not really something we did, is it? We didn't really talk about that.
No. And as I look at it, you know, so all of the energy that we're aware of, and all of the wrongness that we might be putting our parents into, or this whatever, like all of that we want to go to make it wrong. Let's just take a deep breath in, blow it out, let it go. Because what I know is, as I look at my family's dynamic, you know, my mom was one of 5 girls, and they came from a very blue collar, very income challenged environment and way of living. And so they did what they did to get by. They didn't talk, I mean, bodies were for procreation, right? They were to extend the family and extend the lineage and to do God's work and all of the points of view they have. So they weren't educated. They weren't modeled. So my parents did the best they could with what they had.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't blame anyone, right? Like, this is all part of the process. And I know for me just now, and I've shared this on my radio show, I share it in everything, my 11-year-old, like, I am raising him in the way I would have preferred to be raised, which is openly. Honestly, there's no embarrassment. There's no shame. There's nothing. I mean, the stuff we talk about, people, you know, like, I'm 48. Is that what my driver's license says? 48? I think I'm 48.
Right.
I have to check. But there are people, you know, my age and older that would never have conversations that I'm having with my 11-year-old. And what I know is the ease that it gives my body, the ease that it gives him, the tools and the ability to know there's no wrongness in any of it.
Yeah.
And that's such a gift. So just, I wanted to speak to, you know, don't make yourself wrong. Don't beat yourself up. There's always the opportunity and possibility to change things for yourself and to educate yourself and to explore and to experience something different, you know. But this is a really big topic in terms of, if you look at people who are coupled up, men and women, women and women, men and men, it doesn't matter how you mix them up. There's so much unconsciousness around our sexy bits. There's just people are like clueless, right? Because we haven't been taught. There's not, most of us won't go out and take a course on OM or gastric meditation, or, you know, how to stroke a vagina, you know, how to stroke a vulva and a clitoris, and how to stroke a man's penis. Like, most people will not educate themselves. It's self-taught, self-made, if you will.
Oh, and I found this fascinating. So I looked up, because I was really curious, I looked up both vagina and vulva art and penis art. And so I thought this was interesting. I found something in the course of my perusing the information, and it was really fascinating. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, here we, okay. This is really interesting to me. Okay. See how this lands for you. Various perceptions of the vagina have existed throughout history, including the belief that it is the center of sexual desire, a metaphor for life via birth, inferior to the penis, visually unappealing, inherently unpleasant to smell, or otherwise vulgar. The vagina has been termed many vulgar slang names, some of which are derogatory epithets. Negative views of the vagina are contrasted by views of the vagina that is a powerful symbol of female sexuality, spirituality, or life. And it, let's see, author Denise Lynn stated, the vagina is a powerful symbol of womanness, openness, acceptance, and receptivity. It is the inner valley spirit. Regarding religion, that's end of quote, the vagina represents a powerful symbol as the yoni in Hindu, and this may indicate the value that Hindu society has given female sexuality and the vagina's ability to birth life. So I thought that was so fascinating that you have this extreme of, like, in a sense, sort of like cultural and social point of view, or what's that word? It's not a feeling, it's a something else. What is that word? Anyway, it was so interesting to me. It has always fascinated me that we have so many different ways we can consider the vagina, the penis, and I was around a lot of people who thought they were dirty simply because, you know, there were also it's also part of where we eliminate the body's waste. And so there was this kind of ew sort of energy for a lot of people around that. And then when you think about like actually doing something besides using it to go to the bathroom, you know, people start to kind of freak out a bit. And so that's what got me thinking, is like, when you actually look at the vulva, which now the vulva is the entirety of, like, the vagina is the birth canal, the opening. But when you actually look at the vulva and the whole of the penis and the man's anatomy, there's something so beautiful there that I see, and it has been portrayed in several, you know, works of art, a number of works of art by a number of different people. But it's so interesting that there is such we're so steeped in the no-no of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the taboo. It's the taboo aspect. It's and there's so much judgment, right? Like, so much of this judgment came up, you know, socioeconomic classes, religious classes, etc. Mm-hmm. And yet what I have always been fascinated with is the variety. As different as all of us are, as unique as we are, so are our parts, right? And so I know when I really started to explore my sexuality and like the essence of like all of this and the bodies, and I am always so fascinated and amazed to see all the varieties of female genitalia and all of the varieties of male genitalia, and it's gorgeous. Yeah. And yet I know there was a time that I too judged it because that's what I had been taught. That's what I had been told, that it's dirty and it's, you know, good girls don't do that, and right. And yet when I finally said, you know what, then why the fuck do I have one? It cannot have a baby. Like, that's bullshit. That doesn't make it just didn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And so I had to start to explore. Now, I did it secretly, and I did it in a lot of ways in acting out because that's all I knew at the time, right? Just kind of go a little bit crazy. But that was my process, and I don't make myself wrong for it anymore. But it's like, they're astounding. So I just want to invite everybody that whatever points of view or conclusions or what you decided private parts mean, genitalia, whatever you want to label or call it, I just like for you to invite whatever you currently have in place to set it aside, set it down, push it away for just a little bit, and be willing to consider something different. If you would like greater with your body, greater sex for yourself, greater sex with others, just greater communion and connection with your body, whatever it is, would you be willing to look at things even just a degree different, 1 percentage point different?
I love that.
I just went out. Thank you, God.
What could 1 percentage point change drastically?
Yeah. So I think a question that I would have folks ask themselves is, so truth, what do my sexy bits, naughty bits, private bits, whatever you want to call them, what do they actually mean to you? I love asking those meaning questions to start the ball rolling.
Great question.
Yeah.
And so, wow. I also get that for a lot of us, it's one of those ways we compartmentalize our bodies. So I also would like to invite you, anywhere you are maintaining a separateness of your sexy bits, your private bits, your man bits, your woman bits, whatever you call them, anywhere you are consciously or unconsciously, usually for us it's unconsciously,
Right.
trying to make them separate, trying to make them a part of your body that you don't have to deal with, and a part of your life that you don't have to deal with. Would you be willing to just acknowledge that is a part of your body? And I wonder if you could have greater ease, if it would create more ease, if you allowed all of your body to be together. It's like I'm aware, and many of us, I believe, are aware that there's been a great deal of injury done to bodies, a great deal of mutilation, a great deal of deformation, a great deal of disfigurement done to bodies of a sexual nature, specifically dealing with the genitalia. And everything we're aware of with all of that, let's just encompass all of that. And what could we be choosing now that would allow the memories of that, the perpetration of that, the continuation of that, everywhere that we are in any way participating with allowing that to stick us, allowing that to stay as something that we have to deal with. Everywhere we're making that a requirement or a reality or an only choice. Wow. Would you be willing to acknowledge you don't have to choose that? You don't have to carry that. If that's something that has occurred for you, if that is something that's been a part of this lifetime for you, would you be willing to choose to seek something that is beyond wherever that has energetically been a trauma for you and physically been a trauma for you, that you've not been able to maybe move past, if that's the case? Wow, that's so interesting. I was looking at just, if we have this dislike, or in some cases this hatred, if we're thinking upon our private parts as something dirty, as something to be ashamed of, as something we don't like, as something that's unpretty, and yet that is the place through which we are receiving our lover, how much can you really receive?
Great question.
That's kind of like wrapping your doorway to your house in garbage and then being really offended when people don't want to come into your house.
Yeah.
You know, so would you be willing to let that fall away?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, receive that sacredness, that magic, that pleasure that can be brought to you, can be awakened for you.
And let me just remind people who might have heard this before, and for those of you who have not, hold on to your knickers. Because I know when I heard it, I had to do a double, triple take and chew on it for a while. We chose these bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it before, you've said it, it's not new to us, right? We chose, so I chose feminine embodiment this lifetime, as did you and many of our friends here. There's something very right about it, right? And how much do we resist? And how much do we buy into, the feminine is less than the masculine? All of that bullshit, right? Like, let's just call it for what it is. Mm-hmm. There is something so uniquely powerful about the feminine body that we have bought so many lies to keep that masked, to keep it hidden, to keep it secret, to keep it just all of the cloaking and all of the veiling and all of that, right? Like I look at the Middle East, right? You look at these countries who, and I get, cultural and religious and all their beliefs, I get it. But if you go underneath all of that, like the power and the potency and the magic that is wrapped in a feminine body, I get it.
Yeah.
And so there is divisiveness and fear, and there's the attempt to control. Like, I get it. And it's like, I'm not buying that bullshit anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's it gonna take for us to claim, own, and acknowledge? And we don't have to be boisterous about it, and we don't have to be in your face about it unless we just choose to, unless it's just fun for us in any given moment. But to own the fullness and the wholeness of the feminine. And again, I'm not trying to just get on the feminine. I love male bodies. Like, I love my male bodies. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking to women. As a woman, we have done a disservice to ourselves. We've done a disservice to our feminine bodies, and it's time to fucking stop it.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say on there. It's time to fucking stop it. So whoever you want to learn from and listen to and learn the teachings with and teach and share, and I don't care who it is, just do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, soapbox moment. Complete.
Go for it, honey. Yeah. Well, and it's like, what the question, what do we know? I love that question. What do we know? We know so much more than what we allow ourselves to acknowledge for most of our lifetime. And I get that that's just sort of part of the way we created here, and it's a choice we can make. And yet, this interesting thing, I think it's fascinating. There's this, part of our culture now, we have this thing that is called dick pics, and other kinds of pics. And it's sort of like literally that isolated picture a picture of an isolated area of the body, usually the genitals. And it's like, it's interesting to me that's another form of this separation, and it's also interesting to me that, like, in many cultures, eons of our existence, how many artifacts have been found over the years, that are phallic symbols, that are symbols of fertility, that are another form of a picture. It's just before they had, Kodak and Polaroid. And it's like, what do we know about what is possible if we are actually allowing what our sexy bits can offer us? And then I also would like to play with what are other parts of our bodies that are sexy bits, that we don't maybe play with, like, earlobes or nipples or fingertips or elbows, or what is that for some people? Like, do you let yourself, I remember a show, what was it? I might be dating myself. I think it was Boston Boston. Oh gosh,
Boston Legal or
Boston Legal. I think it was.
Okay.
It was the guy and the woman. I think, and I can't remember the actors or actresses' names, but the characters. One of them was an older woman with a younger man, and he had a thing about her waddle, and it was the thing under her chin. He found that very sexy.
Oh, this thing right here. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's like, what is it for you? What do you find sexy on other people's bodies? And what have things been pointed out to you, or do people mention things about your body that, you know, that have sort of struck you funny, or that you've like, well, I never thought about that. It never dawned on me that could be sexy. Like, have you ever had anything like that for you, Rhonda?
Because I have a dimple. I have a really prominent dimple, and it's just because I've always had it, I don't think about it. And so, you know, people always comment on what a beautiful dimple, but I've had many people say, God, your dimple is so sexy. I was like, okay, cool, thanks, right? It's like, okay, cool. I got no point of view. It's there, and I smile. I love to smile, and it shows up. So I was like, that one always kind of struck me as, because it was always, oh, your dimple is so beautiful. It's so sweet. It's so, right? It's always that little, you know, and so when I would have people say, God, that's sexy, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, like for me, when I was growing up, my feet were commented on a lot. I was dancing,
yeah.
and so I had bare feet a lot, and people remarked about my feet. And you know, there's all kinds of there are fetishes, you know,
Right.
limitless numbers of fetishes, and oh yes, thank you, Eleanor. Ally McBeal. It was Ally
McBeal. Okay, I was wondering if that's
Boston Legal for some reason. But anyway, it's like you never know what people find sexy about you, right? And would you want to control what they find sexy or don't find sexy? Really? No. Yeah, like
no. Yeah, and I'm also going to say, because this has come up for me, don't buy it, because I have found that's what I have unconsciously done in the past. And I know I think you and I worked, around my stomach area. Do you remember that conversation we had? Mm-hmm. And I had a lover who absolutely, positively loved my belly. And it was smaller then than it is now. And just like it turned him on to no end. Like he just would worship it. Well, guess what I did with that? Somewhere I bought it, and I was holding on to it, and I was making it bigger, which actually doesn't work for me because it doesn't actually feel good. And I was like, ow. So let's look at receiving, right? When people give you compliments, when people share their affections with you or for you, and they share how much they think this is sexy or that's sexy, receive it and just let it flow. You don't hold on to it. You don't lock it in. You don't buy it hook, line, and sinker. You just receive the energy. You allow them to have it, and you don't have to do anything else with it. I'm really notorious. My body and I are notorious for taking stuff and holding on to it. Not my greatest choice.
Right. Oh my gosh. So, wow. There's almost this I don't want to look kind of energy.
Yep.
Like,
well, how much?
Go ahead.
Well, no, look back. How many of us were actually invited, encouraged to look at our private parts?
Yeah.
To look at our, genitalia, to touch our, we didn't go there.
Oh my gosh. And right? we were taught to do it when we were looking for something wrong, like at a health screen.
Exactly. Don't touch that. It's dirty. Oh, what will people that don't touch, boys touching themselves, fondling themselves? It's totally natural. How many little boys don't touch that? That's, oh my God. Oh my God, it feels good. It's fun. It's hanging there. Like my kid, he loves his body and he loves his penis and he's going to be hitting into preteen puberty before too long. And it's I'm just standing there I'm curious to see how he plays with it all. Literally and figuratively. But it was a huge no-no for us to look, much less touch and explore. And so then we go into relationship, and then we're expected to put this shit together. No wonder stuff doesn't work well. Are you kidding me? Like the blind leading the fucking blind.
The perfect recipe for freak out.
God, and self-judgment and hatred of our bodies, and oh my God.
Yeah, like how, so, because this is really, I know that for me, when I am having a lover, I know that I want to see all of the parts of them.
Oh, yes.
And that's just part of the mystery and the majesticness and the magic of them, you know, and of like what is possible. And a part of it is sort of kind of logistics. It's like, well, where do I touch? Where do I kiss? Where do I, you know, because you're wanting to learn where the pleasure buttons are and where not, you know, where the not pleasure buttons are. And then a part of it is like, wow, look at this body. Look at what you created, you know, and it isn't about like, you know, your body fat ratio, and that has nothing to do with it. It's more of like, look at all of these parts, and then look at how they come together. And then, you know, now I think it's interesting too, because we have in many of our conversations, we've talked about how aware are we? And so when I wonder, you know, well, I can say that in some of my relationships, I've been very aware of, I just couldn't have told you at the time because I didn't have this terminology, but what I was aware of was the judgment that the person was having about their body. And it's almost like you have to try to see through that filter because it's so thick. But that's so interesting. It's like, I can say that I love to see that. And when I'm in that voyeur, you know, the observer mode, I'm not judging. I'm not looking at it to find something that's wrong. I'm actually like fascinated by everything that's there, you know. And yet I can say receiving that from my lover, just letting them see the parts of my body, that has not always been ease for me.
Yeah.
So
I think many of us. Yeah, it is. And so as you were talking, that's beautiful. As you were talking, what I got was it has to be our work / play that we do this for ourselves. And it's only when we are utterly and completely and totally okay with every square inch of us. And I mean in every crack, in every crevice, over every dimple, like I don't care what it looks like. If we are willing to be okay with it and truly like in awe of it, then no matter who we go into quote unquote physical interaction with, whatever, you know, sexual encounters, like it just doesn't matter. We can be aware of they're crazy, but what I know, it's interesting, and I learned this from Gary, and those of you who know Access Consciousness, it's been a while since I heard this for the first time, but he talks about a lot of times when you don't have judgment of a male body, like as a female, a lot of times they cannot get erect. Men cannot get erect because there's no judgment. And I got a flash of all the times in my life I have been with men who could not get it up. And do you know how many times I made myself wrong in those instances?
Wow.
Every single time.
Wow.
But it's because I showed up in awe of being with this body and just the curiosity of, wow, what does this look like? And what does this smell like? And oh my gosh, look what this does. And oh my gosh, look how this feels. And right? Like a kid in a fucking candy store. And when I heard that, like, wow, that was so freeing. And so then now being able to play with that, but I know for myself, because we are so aware, like when I'm with a partner, I get their crazy judgment stuff and I think it's mine. Like that's the first place I go because it feels so familiar to me. And so as I've stripped that away, I'm very clear that in this 10 seconds, if you ask me to strip down and get naked with a new, I'm not there.
Yeah.
So I have more work to do, right? On the all the bits.
Yeah.
Because I desire to be free for me so that I can be free with someone else.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know, I so get now that is a part of the gift we can give ourselves with the willingness to look at ourselves physically and energetically. And it's like, you know, I wonder if for whoever is willing, there's mirror exercises for like standing and looking at your face in the mirror or at your shape in the mirror. And I wonder how many people might be willing to look at their specific body parts in a mirror and just really look and stop seeing like the clinical application of it and really just look at, could you be willing to fall in love with you?
Yeah.
Could you be willing to admire all the parts of you? As you were just saying, it's like there's also, for me, there's also kind of been a practicality to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you know what to ask for if you've not explored with your own body and your own sexy bits, how do you know whether you like pressure in certain areas or stroking in certain areas or don't like that? I have things that I'm very aware of that I like and that I don't like. And, some of us have like, well, no two private parts are the same, as we said earlier. And so it's like, relative to that, there's different areas in each of those bodies, for each of those bodies, where they're going to receive sensitiveness or sensory stimulation differently. They're going to have a different angle that's required. They're going to have a different number of touch points that are required. Some people appreciate the feel of certain things more than other things. And so, it's very interesting. I also am aware how bombarded we are with the images of what are supposed to be sexy and beautiful. So would you be willing to let go of every other body you've compared your body to? And maybe play with what are the really neat things about your own body? And I say this for my own benefit as well, because it's like, I know I do that. I know I don't do that as often as what could really be generative for my body.
Yes. And I think I think coupled with, so acknowledging, yes, but I don't think people actually get how pervasive and invasive the marketing stuff is in our day-to-day. I don't think people notice how much they do the comparison thing because it's such a constant for us. So I would say, coupled with acknowledging notice every time you think about comparing yourself or putting yourself down or judging, just start to notice, because when you can notice, then you can actually start to shift things. And yes, thank you Eleanor wrote, what about allowance first and then love your body? And you know what? Yes, but let's just talk realism in this 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I stood in my mirror and I've talked to my body and you know what? I am usually not in allowance of where I am in that moment because I'm judging that it needs to be different. And that's not allowance.
There's another part of this here that it's kind of popping. So it's we have that goes on, but we also have I know that when I'll put it in first person first. I know that when there's been those moments, and I've become aware of this just recently, when I'm looking at someone, let's say I'm looking at somebody who's shown up in a male body, I've caught myself in these moments where it's like I'm responding to an energy that they're being. And then I become aware that there's this weird thing that we buy into of what we're supposed to find attractive and beautiful. And it's like, there's that, I think for a lot of us, unconsciously, in most cases, there's that little bit of the space between what's occurring for you organically and then all of those judgments that start to pop and something triggers that tape, so to speak, that it starts to run. And it's like, oh, but I'm not supposed to find that attractive. I think in a big one in our culture is you're not supposed to find larger bodies attractive. And yet how many people do you see who are beyond a size 8 or 10 or 12, and they're friggin' sexy, and they're beautiful, and they're handsome, or they're, you know, there's just this who they be that's just like, yeah, you know, but it doesn't fit the images that have been plastered in most places. And so would you be willing to catch yourself more when that starts to run for you? Because then when we do those things, we look in the mirror and we say the kind words, and we actually, I mean, many times I've actually just had this moment and I'm like, whoa, body, fuck, you know, I just get the sense of like what she does and the allowance that she is for all my bullshit. But then I go back out into the world and it can be really noisy, and I lose that, you know, that peacefulness and that awareness, or the noise sort of drowns it out, so to speak. So I love what you were, play more with where you were, because I was just getting how like we have that stuff that starts, and then we start to make ourselves wrong, like, oh, well, I must not find them attractive. Oh, well, what am I doing here about to go to bed with them, kind of thing.
Right. And we diminish, you know, so it's there all the time. We don't notice it. So we literally go with it, and then we go into wrongness and judgment and conclusion and decision and diminishment, and everything gets like this. And that's not the space of who we are. It's not the space of who our bodies are. And so as I've been playing, and I literally have given the reins to my body, and I said, show me. And I literally have, like, it's been interesting this last week of really bypassing my cognitive thinking mind, and just she's showing me pictures. Yeah. So that's how she communicates with me, and I can actually see them now. I can actually perceive them now. And so it's just, it's like, that's what, oh my, she's tingling, right? She's like, oh, right? Because we're communicating now. We truly are in communion more than we've ever been. And so in terms of, you know, private bits, I know for myself, I'm willing to go and look at porn. I'm willing to go and look at art exhibits. I'm willing to look at anything to do with sex, sexuality, bodies, because every time I do, it gives me information.
Yes.
It gives me sensations. It gives me feedback. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's how I get clarity, create clarity for myself. So where did I want to go with that? So I'm going to challenge folks. This is riding that edge. And this is, I do this, and man, what it changes for me. So let's say you see somebody in the grocery store, the coffee shop, or in line at the post office, wherever, and you are drawn to look at them. And I don't care their size, their shape, their color, I don't care. But if you're drawn to them, like, just drop your barriers and be willing to be with that. And if you feel compelled to pay a compliment from the genuine integrity of that moment. So I remember I've come across people, and it's, you know, and I'll be like, okay, this is really inappropriate for me to say, but you have the most gorgeous blank. I think that is the stuff. And I will say, I know this is inappropriate, right? Because I'm just speaking to this reality, but I'll pay the compliment. I don't expect anything in return. My barriers are down. I'm being in the presence of that moment, and to watch what it does for that person, everything just goes, ooh, and they don't know what to do with it. And I just kindly walk away. So and it doesn't have to be like that, but be willing to be present in moments where you feel drawn and you feel like, ooh, and if there's a compliment there, or just a glance or a smile, or like, be willing to engage in those moments is what I'm asking you to play with. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because what it creates for them is one thing, but what it does for our bodies, it's acknowledging what's there and going on. We don't need anything in return, but watch what it does for you and your body. Watch what starts to show up. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I love that, because there really is something potent in the choosing and the actual offering of that acknowledgement. Yeah, I love that. I wrote it out in the chat so that I hope I captured it in words as you were offering that. So that's beautiful. Yes. And you know, it's like, it'll just be interesting what you notice shows up as you play with this for those of you who are willing to play with it this week. Wow. And you can do it for one day. You don't have to do it for the whole week. There's no, like,
for 10 minutes.
Right. You just try it one time.
And if you want to get out of your head, because as head trippers, just say, hey, body, show me. Just show me where you want to go. Show me who you'd like to look at. Show me who you want to flirt with, and just kind of put it out there. And then she or he will take the lead if you let them, you know? So it's just, I cannot tell you the level of ease that I'm having, like letting my body be the guide. I can't even explain to you how much more ease it is.
Wow. Wow. We're getting close to our end of hour. And I was curious about the one more thing I kind of wanted to bring in, just to bring the energy of in here, is like the way we dress our sexy bits is another sort of place that we are given a lot of imagery about, you know, how we're supposed to outfit them. And I like, so really, like, go with, like, again, like, ask your body, would that be fun for you? What's appealing to you? You know, what feels good to wear? For a time in my life, thongs were like something that were fun to wear, you know. Nowadays, my body's like, we don't require that, you know. And it's like, I mean, you know, depending on like if it was going to be fun, if my body said, well, it could be fun to do that, yeah, I'm willing to do that. But it's like, I used to wear some things that were very restrictive, and it was just part of that exploration, you know. So whatever you like, what sensory response and creation would you be willing to play with? Maybe just, if not this week, then whenever it occurs for you. You know, there's lots of different ways we dress up. The negligee, the lingerie, all of that. But also, like, you know, does your body just want cotton undies and a comfortable sports bra? Or, you know, do you want the whole, like, push up and accentuate and, you know, and guys, what is, yeah, right? What is comfortable for guys, you know? It's just another one of those places that I know there's more information there if you're willing to play with that, and see what your body tells you.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll tell you, I had put off going and being fitted for a proper bra for a really long time. It's been almost a year now, and I went to the shop. That's all they specialize in. So I had, you know, a consultant. And when my body put on a bra that actually fit really well and it was sexy, everything about the shape of my body changed. And I was like, holy shit, they weren't lying. Like, proper foundational wear for women is crucial. And then I got like 4 bras, and I'm like, so now I have this beautiful choice, and my body's like, that one. And today, like, we're wearing one of our favorites, right? And it's like, it's amazing what your body will show you when you dress your body in what it desires. Willing to play with it. You know, men for the same thing. Like, I love a certain style of, you know, brief on a man, skivvies, if you will, undies. And it's like, man, when I see that on a man, it's like, oh, Lord, have mercy, right? Boxers, not so much. Briefs, not, but like, you know, so I know what I respond to well, but it's like, do what works for your body. Be willing to explore and play with that. Yeah, that's a great piece to bring in. Yeah. I love that.
Wow. We are, oh my goodness.
I don't know where the time
is. There's so much about sexy bits. So, you know, I really like, so are you willing to acknowledge your bits as sexy and let them contribute to your sexiness? And whatever you've made sexy mean, would you just maybe be willing to throw all that out the window to begin with? And just really follow the energy. If it lights you up, if it makes you feel frisky or saucy or cheeky, or like you want to dance, or like you could hug somebody, or, you know, you want to cook a meal. Sexy can be anything. It doesn't have to be a specific restriction of something. So, really, what is that?
Yeah, your version is sexy, my version is sexy, you know, Ashley Graham version, it's all different. Yeah. So it's like, wherever you feel your absolute greatest and can actually show up without any barriers, without any judgment of yourself, and just be all of that. It's like, that's the freedom. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. There was something I was going to say. So yeah, friends, if you're not yet willing to acknowledge, you know, what's actually there, just say, hey, this is where I am right now. say, cool, I'm not all that keen on my vagina. Okay, I'm not all that keen on what's going on up here. Like, just acknowledge it. Okay, cool, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Would I actually like a different relationship with that?
Yeah.
And just be honest with yourself. That's all I'm asking. Just be honest with where you are. We're not asking you to go someplace you don't want to go. These are the conversations for those people that would like a little bit more freedom around sex and sexuality and body parts and, all of that. Just acknowledge where you are and ask yourself truthfully, would you like it to be different? Then do the work, do the question, ask the questions, play with it. Be willing to be silly, be willing to be wrong, be willing to be judged. Like the willingness to just go for it, that's the stuff that changes it, Like Keisha and I this has not been a perfectly paved road for either one of us. Like we love to muck things up and we love to make things really big and right? And then it's like, oh, that was a choice. Cool. Okay, here we are.
Look what that created. Yeah, and we're not asking you to go be a sexual exhibitionist either, folks. So if you
unless that's fun for you,
if that's what you want to try, just don't. That's your choice. That's not on us. It's so the things we're talking about with looking in the mirror, holding a mirror to your body parts, and seeing what goes on for you. You do that in the privacy of your own space, and you don't have to do that in the presence of your lover or anyone else. This is really for you, because as Rhonda said, it starts with each of us. It starts with how we receive us first, and that sets the energetic bar, if you will, for how other people can receive us and how we can receive them. Whether we're doing a business transaction, at the bank, or we're doing public speaking, or we're answering phones for our job, or we're drawing up plans for a house, or we're putting up the laundry, in any of those cases. So it's really, would you let this begin with you? That is part of what our target is to give you information, tools, maybe some shocking words that will rattle those parameters just enough that maybe something shakes loose and you have a different awareness and you actually make a choice that works for you. So in particular, when it comes to things in the nature of sex and bodies, we know that there's a lot more constriction usually when it comes to those things for a lot of people. So Rhonda, since we didn't really talk about ourselves, do you just want to let folks know how to play with you? Because you've got a show.
Yes. Yeah, I have a radio show every Wednesday morning on a2zen.fm. We go at 10 a.m. Eastern every Wednesday morning. You can find me there. Tomorrow we are talking about, are your yeah butts kicking your arse? That'll be a fun one. So all the yeah butts we do. And then, of course, my website, Rhonda-burns.com right now is the current one, but that will be changing. You, Miss Keisha, how can friends play with you?
You can come and see me live on Fridays on a2zen.fm. That's where both of our shows are. And my show is Living Well, W-E-A-L. It airs live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And this week I have a guest, Jen Posick, and we're going to be talking about, would you like Facebook to be your friend? And she is a major, awesome, potent force in the world for growing your business with social media, and particularly with Facebook. So if you want to find out more about that, join us on Friday. And you can also find me on Facebook, Living Well with Keisha. That's the easiest way to go to find out information about me. And I wonder how much more.
You still have your special going on?
I do actually. Thank you. Yes, I still have my summer special through the end of September, and it is my 2020 session. That's 20 minutes for $20. And if you think you can't have lunch in 20 minutes, you might be surprised. It's all about you. So, and then if you would like to work with either myself or Rhonda or both of us, if there are things that come up in these conversations and you maybe want to go a little further, explore a little more, change something with regards to your body and sex for you, we are happy to facilitate as well. And you can reach us at the email address, conversationswithkr@gmail.com. It's in the text of the information below this video. If you're watching it on a replay, it'll also be in the emails that we distribute to you each week with your links to join us live or the replays. So, wow. What are you willing to have with your sexy bits this week? All your sexy bits. Any parting words, Miss Rhonda?
Would you be willing to have more fun with your sexy bits this week?
Yeah.
Just whatever that means for you.
That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm.
So grateful for everybody who came. Done. Everybody who came to play with us live, and all of those of you who choose to watch this in the future. Thank you. We truly do desire to contribute to something different in terms of all of that we speak about, the sex of everything, sexually speaking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So grateful.
Yes, and thank you, Rhonda, for playing with me. Thank you for being the incredible invitation you are, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of what you have coming up in the near future. And thank you all. So what could you be creating this week? Breaking out of conventionality, would you be willing to celebrate for yourself all things sex and the sex of everything with you and your life and all your sexy bits? And until next week, woo, have a great week. We'll see you here again for the next episode of Sexually Speaking.
See you next week. Thanks, guys. Thank you for chatting with us. I got to lean up here to type.